Hello, and welcome to Dice Masters United. I'm Spug.
I'm Ben.
I'm James.
And I'm Peter.
Coming up in this episode,
We're coming over all Parper and start by challenging Ben to build a competitive team using just cards of the common variety.
And we'll continue the focus on our grey striped friends, talking about some of the best common cards from sets gone by.
And with the dreaded return to school upon us, we ask which Dice Masters characters would make the best teachers.
All that and more in the latest episode of Dice Masters United.
yes, we are back after our little hiatus and brief summer holiday. Guys, it's good to be back with you. How is everybody, first up? Because I haven't spoken to you for a little while. Is everybody okay?
Brilliant!
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah.
I saw an eagle.
Oh, can't get much more exciting than that. And I've been on holiday. Peter's been sick. And Ben.
Playing games.
You've been playing games. Oh dear, living the life of Riley. Well, it's very good to be back with you all, and we are focusing on common cards, as we said in the intro. And this is going to be the first in an occasional series focusing on a particular variety. And for our first job, we challenged Ben to put together a decent team using only common cards. And we're going to take a look at that now and chat through some of the choices that he's made. As ever, we want you to get involved. So what do you make of the team? What could Ben have done differently? And what would your common team be if you had to make a team just out of commons? And we're not talking about starters. We should mention that straight away. So some of them, obviously, some of the grey stripe cards are starters, but we're just focusing on commons as per packs and stuff. But let's start with Ben's team. Ben, why don't you unveil the house of horrors that you've thrown together with your common team? What's in it?
Yeah, so I think probably before we start, we should mention that it is not starters or campaign boxes or anything where it's an LCG format rather than a collectible format. Particularly difficult is getting around the starter cards because there were some like cool ones like the Human Torch, I think, has a bunch of stuff in the starter that you couldn't use, but it looked like you could. And Storm as well, lots from AVX actually. The other stipulation I put on myself, which obviously you guys can agree or disagree with, but I tended not to put any cards where, in my opinion, the best card isn't the common card. So there's two that sprung to three probably that sprung to my mind. Constantine, Black Widow, and Yuan Ti. Their super rares kind of overshadow them in general.
Yeah.
The third stipulation, which I put on myself, was they can't be in one of my already built teams. So I think that discounts like the Collector, the Common, which is pretty good, from Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
The Mimic, which I love, but wasn't here. But I don't know if I would include that as well because that takes a lot of pieces to get to work. And
yes, it does.
It's a bit boring talking about Mimic Ramp all the time. And then the other thing was there had to be a team, right? So it's not just my 8 favourite common cards that I put in there. All right, so I guess let's get down to it. Do you want me to go one at a time, or do you want me to just do the whole lot and then we can talk through it?
Go for it. Well, why don't you just generally talk through the choices that you've made with your 8 main characters?
So as I was going through the list, I came up with, I think, like 40 cards that I thought were pretty good common cards that would probably see meta play. Yeah. And then I sort of kind of started working around a team that could work. And I think there were 2 really obvious things that stood out to me. The first thing, which we'll probably get into later, is the bolts are really good. There's a bunch of bolt stuff, direct damage, win conditions. Yeah, it's not really my play style, so I decided not to do that. And then the second was like a control-y, horrible thing, which isn't really my play style either, but gave me a chance to talk about a card that I think is pretty interesting and undervalued. So I went with really, 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 really pretty horrible, heavy control.
You have.
And then I put Professor X on it so I could buy all my stuff. So, the first card, I guess, is Professor X, the one with the global, so recruiting young mutants.
Yeah.
This kind of breaks my rule about maybe trainers better, but you're mainly there for the global, so you pay a mask,
True.
And you can move up to 2 psychic dice from your use pile to your prep area. And this is kind of like almost an infinite loop of being able to get your sidekicks out of your use pile into your prep area, rolling all your dice every turn, all the time.
Yeah.
Then I went with a bunch of control to stop my opponent doing anything. I went with Elf Thief, who steals an energy when fielded.
Yeah.
I went with Mira for the global, which is kind of like a more beefed up version of Kang. Kang global for Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
If you take more than 5 damage, you only take 2 instead.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch, who controls actions by stopping your opponent from re-rolling them or rolling them at all if they're on a energy phase.
Yeah.
Madam Mask, who stops any global abilities your opponent might use. Batgirl, who stops your opponent targeting your character dice with character abilities. So I've got the kind of stop globals, stop character abilities, stop actions with Scarlet Witch.
Stop any fun whatsoever.
And then I had stop combat damage with Mira. And so then I was like, okay, this is like quite a lot of control. Maybe I should. How would I win? And then I was like, well, my opponent might do one of 2 things. They could either wall up with a bunch of characters, and then try and just overwhelm me with force. So I put on Lantern Power Ring, which I'll come back to because I think it's a really cool card, which not a lot of people have ever played.
No.
And then the other thing they might do is just kind of try and throw people at me, which would mean their field was quite lean. Mm-hmm. So then I decided Firestorm would be a good way to combat that, also remove some stuff. So Firestorm I've used quite a lot, which is Host of the Matrix, which is from the Green Arrow and Flash set, I think.
Yeah.
And when he attacks, he deals damage to a target character die for each other character die in your field zone.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to have quite a lot of while-active characters, so Firestorm was just a nice way to kind of do some big, chunky KO characters, swing through. He has good stats as well.
Yeah.
So Lantern Powering, I guess, is the standout card that I wanted to talk about the most. This Lantern Powering has a global, which is pay a mask and target opposing character die gains the villain affiliation until the end of turn.
Yeah, villain.
Which doesn't really do anything on my team, apart from lets Lantern Powering work. So this is energy projection. 4-cost mask, you deal 1 damage to your opponent for each opposing villain in play. And on double burst, you can also deal an equal amount of damage to each villain. So if they wall up, you can basically pay a bunch of masks to make a bunch of their characters villains, and then use Lantern Powering to deal damage equal to the number of characters they have in play. And on double burst, you also deal that damage to each character as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, particularly because it would clear quite a few characters potentially.
Yeah,
out of the way as well. If you've got stuff in your field, that's good. That Lantern Powering card is interesting actually because I started playing the game quite keenly at AVX and enjoyed it for a bit, but then couldn't really find a local play group. And then the sort of once UXM had come and gone, I kind of dropped off the game for a bit. And I think that was when Yu-Gi-Oh! And Justice League came out. So I didn't see masses of those sets at the time. And this Lantern Powering card, I don't even remember even seeing before. I don't have that much Justice League stuff, and I don't even remember. Slightly shamefully, I don't even recognise the picture. I don't think I've ever seen it before.
This is a great. I mean, it's very interesting, kind of big, chunky direct damage win condition. It's sort of like a oomphed up power bolt in the. Or it's kind of like a combination between that and like a delayed blast fireball. And it's really fun, especially if your opponent walls up with a bunch of stuff. It was a good one to throw on when people were doing lots of Black Manta retaliation. Yeah. And they had a bunch of villains anyway, so you didn't need to use the global so much.
No, that's right, because you want to use it for Professor X, don't you, really? You want to use the masks for Professor X.
But even if you just like churn a bunch of these through and, just ping for 3 damage each turn, that quickly adds up, especially if you're controlling your opponent quite heavily.
Yeah. So what do you think would be your sort of your purchase order and stuff? How would you?
My turn 3 theory.
Yeah, 3-turn theory. Yeah.
I guess it's just buy Elf Thief as early as possible. Keep ramping with Professor X, and then choose whatever your opponent's going to do the most of. If they're going to try and do lots of character abilities, get Batgirl out. If they're going to do lots of global abilities, get Madam Mask out. Or if they're going to buy some actions, use Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
get that control set up, and then just choose either Lantern Powering or Firestorm, and then just keep chipping away.
Yeah.
And just eventually get everything out and stop them.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Peter, what do you make of the team?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of fun to play against. It's gonna be fairly slow but steady, and it's super annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, good job.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's not a very fast team. You won't have. My preferred method is probably mid-range, where you cannot either go quite fast or quite slow. This is like you don't have a middle ground there. You don't have an option. It's just you go very, very slowly and then kind of depress your opponent into defeat.
Yeah. Until you've bought one of every other character, and then they can literally do nothing other than just roll 4 sidekicks, and that's job done. James, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the only thing that's going to make that more depressing is distraction.
Yes, I didn't choose any actions to pick, so distraction was obviously on my mind. Because having that with Mira would be very
depressing.
Yeah.
Demoralizing.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I guess your opponent could still ramp.
That's if they don't get their energy stolen with Elf Thief.
Well, Elf Thief, yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Oh dear.
So yeah, you do give them Professor X, which is a problem. But Elf Thief does a reasonable job. Again, one of the things that's a kind of classic combo with Elf Thief and Professor X is the Oracle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a starter card, so I couldn't include it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would be on there.
Yeah, I think you could have probably swapped out Oracle for like Madam Mask. So Madam Mask stops your opponent from targeting your characters with global abilities. But wouldn't, The other thing I thought is if you have Madam Mask, you can always have a force attack as well as a. So you could do Slingers and Distraction with your 2 basic actions.
Right.
So you can force your opponent to attack with stuff as well as push it back, and they can't target your characters with either of them. But they kind of work against each other partially.
Yeah, because they could bring their own stuff back. How did you think about recycling Elf Thief? Were you just going to attack with it generally? Was that your...
Yeah, generally Elf Thief is okay to just attack with. I mean, especially on its first 2 levels, the 3/3 might be an issue, I suppose, getting that out of the field. But in general, one of the things I really like about this team is none of them have attack stats above 5 apart from Firestorm. So the Mirror and Scarlet Witch, I suppose, has a 5 on top level. But the Mirror isn't very useful in terms of that Lantern Powering. If you get it on double burst face, you can kind of clear a field quite easily.
Yeah.
And then swing through. And some of the like Batgirl and Madam Mask don't have bad stats.
No, not at all. What is it? A 1? I can't actually quite read it on the screen that we've got here.
So Madam Mask is 3/3/4, and Batgirl is also 3/3/4.
Yeah, which is not bad, is it, for a 4 cost? I mean, obviously the you've got a nice selection of 2, 3, 4 cost characters.
The kind of
biggies.
Arc. Yeah, I think I would have liked maybe another 2 cost in there somewhere, especially a non-mask one, because turn 1 you want to roll as many masks as possible, but you might not get enough to Professor X properly, as well as Elf Thief. But then a lot of the kind of 2 cost commons I thought about, Black Widows, Yanti, and Constantine all had better versions, as I discussed earlier. Bercy Perez. The one that maybe you could have fit on is the Boom Boom, but then you need another action to put on to make that really viable.
The Boom Boom that does damage when you use an action.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt to me as if you could maybe do with a character or 2 that wasn't a bolt or a mask. Like maybe just one sort of cheap, kind of fist or shield character.
I definitely think there's too many 4 costs, probably is a weakness, especially there's 3 4 cost masks. Which you probably want to buy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe changing that up slightly would be a good thing to do.
Any improvements, Peter? that you'd suggest?
Yeah, it's tricky.
You can't improve on perfection. James, have you got any thoughts?
What about just to be even more irritating? You could have, isn't it the Hulk, the Lady Hulk from Hulk, isn't it? From Thor.
Oh yeah, the one that does
The
damage.
Hulk from Thor. Yeah. So that Hulk is if another one of your characters takes damage, you spin the Hulk up, and if you can't spin Hulk up, you deal 2 damage to your opponent instead.
Yeah.
Which would put your opponent in quite a bind. Yeah, and probably force them into that kind of lantern powering, like fielding a bunch of characters because they don't want to attack, so they're kind of stuck in that kind of field zone until you're ready for lantern powering.
That gives you a stretch buy. I mean, it's the wrong movie, I suppose, but it gives you something expensive to buy.
Yeah, that'd be a nice one to include. I think you could definitely read the meta and choose to drop one of Scarlet Witch, Madam Mask, or Batgirl. I'm not sure how many globals really target your characters in kind of the overall... probably more than I'm thinking about. And Madam Mask has been used quite effectively before in something like the Hela Beholder team, where you can kind of move a character back to its card using the Hela from from the Mighty Thor.
From Thor, yeah.
So you could change this around, and Batgirl is good for dealing with like Shriek or something. It depends on the meta, I suppose. And then also if you're putting Distraction in, you can probably get rid of Mirror.
Yeah.
I was interested that you chose the Firestorm that you did, the one that deals 1 damage to target character die for each other character die in your field zone when he attacks. Because I feel like the 5 cost from Justice League, the common, which says while active, when you field a bulk character, including Firestorm, deal 2 damage to target character or player. I felt that might be a good potential upgrade on the one that you've got, because you've got some direct damage, and as you've got, Scarlet Witch, if you're able to squeeze in another bulk character, for example, you suggested. I mean, obviously you excluded Yanti, for example, but something like that would give you a nice cheap bolt. Or
I definitely think someone could, if they wanted to spend time, do a really decent bolt team in general.
Oh, for sure.
And that Firestorm would be definitely part of that list, because you could have that Firestorm, and then Yanti, Boom Boom. Bolt character I mentioned. You could already have Scarlet Witch, and then the big one would be the 3-cost Firefly from, is it Batman? Or is it from World's Finest? I can never remember between those two. Batman, I think. When you field a Firefly, you deal damage equal to the number of bolt characters you have in the field. Yeah,
and just hope you don't roll him on his level 3 side with his ridiculous 2 fielding cost.
One of the things I thought about building this in general was how aggressive I think it's really good actually to see so many kind of, my team's very control-y, but there were a bunch of aggressive cards in the common slot, which is quite good in terms of drafting. And kind of what you want from a common card, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll get on to talk about some other kind of fave commons in a mo, but one thing we should talk about is possible basic actions to go with the team. What thoughts generally do people have in terms of what basic actions could work in this team? And obviously they're not going to fit into the common variety because, generally speaking, there aren't any, are there? I think that
there are no rarities
classified as commons. But no, exactly, yeah, because you get them in the starters, or you get them in the team packs, or you get them a default number in a draft pack. But there isn't any kind of rarity. But what might we think would go well as a basic action with this team?
That would be Blink, Transmutation, and Static Field.
Both of them.
As a sort of statement.
You shall not pass.
One of my thoughts was to do, so I suppose we'll probably come to this card actually later. So I won't mention it now, but one of the things I thought about was Delay Blast Fireball. Exactly what James was saying about the Hulk earlier, a stretch buy.
Yeah.
So that 5-cost range is not something you tend to buy with Professor X because you're saving so many masks back every turn.
Yeah.
But the idea about being able to buy a delayed blast fireball, which does 3 damage or 5 damage. Is that the way right around?
It does bonkers damage. Yeah.
Basically,
It does.
Before your opponent's attack step.
It does 4 or 6 if it's on the double burst. Yeah.
And it just, before your opponent's attack step, it just kind of nukes their field. Because again, this team doesn't have a great way of winning. The lantern powering is really interesting. I personally never got it to work particularly well. It works better in theory, I think, in my head, as a main win condition. So yeah, having that kind of delayed blast fireball, clean the field, and then attack through with your control-y characters.
Yeah.
Would be cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that James's stretch goal thing is a good idea. It feels, because you're never going to buy Professor X, but something beefy that you can buy, because obviously you're going to be ramping loads, and it's always nice to have something big to aspire to buy. Peter, what thoughts did you have on the basic action front?
Yeah, the obvious things have already been mentioned. Maybe stuff like betrayal is probably more effective than the power ring.
That's interesting.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't even compared those two in my head.
So that's the one that does damage for according to the number of characters that your opponent has in their field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They are the same. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, it's a good
I
one.
really like betrayal as well. Yeah, I'm very much like that. This kind of like, oh, my opponent has a wall, I will do tremendous amounts of damage to them because of their wall. Kind of idea. And betrayal, is a good one for that.
Yeah, totally.
Here's a thought. It's nothing to do with basic actions, but I was just flicking through, and instead of Madame Mask, you could have Human Paladin, Lesser Emerald Enclave, who does much the same thing. While active, your characters in the field cannot be affected by global abilities used by your opponent, but it's got cool purple and yellow dice. I've got very fond memories of this card. I think I got it off eBay, this particular. And the global is pay a shield. It's a shield, so it's not a mask, so it's a bit of variety. And the global is pay a shield, reduce the damage you take from a character's ability to 1. So that's negating yet another type of damage that might be done to you without affecting yourself.
Well, that's interesting, because it wouldn't affect the power ring because it's not a character.
No.
Yeah, no, I definitely think
it would affect Firestorm.
I had that card out as a choice. The reason I went with Madame Mask, and it's probably a very minor thing, is just in my head I had that Hela team. So the Hela Global, I suppose, if you don't know, is pay 6 energy, and you and your opponent have to basically choose each other's dice to put back onto the card a character. You can choose it from not just the field zone, you can choose it from the use pile and the reserve pool. Use pile and the prep area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Human Paladin doesn't protect against that, which is a very minor case.
Okay.
But Human Paladin only protects in the field.
Yeah. That is
which
true.
is slightly different. But the Human Paladin is a really good card as well.
I think the betrayal is a good shout for a basic action. I think, it feels like actually just on a slightly lesser level to the delayed blast fireball that you mentioned before. Even something simple like Magic Missile might actually be quite useful in this team because you could use it on your own Elf Thief, for example, if you wanted. You could use the global of being able to pay a bolt and dealing 1 damage to a character. You could bolt off your own Elf Thief, or you could use it to get rid of sidekicks in your opponent's field if you wanted to.
That would also make the Madame Mask and Human Paladin more important as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because you then have a global that your opponent will want to be using to stop you from doing stuff.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of variations. You could also do something like Throwing Brick, just in case you wanted more ramp.
Even more ramp.
But one of the things you don't have great protection against is if your opponent starts controlling you as well.
Yeah.
Especially with a blank or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what Batgirl's for, isn't it?
It is,
Get it out first, I suppose.
I was thinking about Wrecker, actually. The stupid one that stops globals, because I hate that concept. But if you can stop Professor X, you can do lots of damage, any Professor X team.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get Shriek out, something like that, really quickly to stop Professor X. before they can get back out. So you have Firestorm for removal for that purpose, which works okay. But yeah, no, some other form of ramp Throne Brick might work with the Elf Thief as well, just to ping him a bit.
Yeah.
And then attack with him.
Yeah.
But it also works with something like Boom Boom if you want to go down.
Well, totally, yeah. I mean, it feels like if you were going to have Throne Brick, you'd probably want to have something like a Yanti, the common Yanti that becomes unblockable when you use a basic action, or the Boom Boom that does damage when you use a basic action.
Or both.
Or both, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then just go Firefly and all the bolts.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. So what are you plumping for, Ben? Can you make a choice on those basic actions, do you think?
I think probably the thing that interests me most is actually Peter's recommendation for Betrayal. Then you can probably have another slot for something other than Lantern Powering, although it's kind of why I built the team, because I want to use Lantern Powering. And then I think I'd throw in Distraction and probably move Mira out for something else as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe Human Paladin for Man and Mask, thinking about, I like the idea about stopping another form of damage, with the global. That's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
Then, you always go back to your old favourites. Something like Transfer Power would be just something I love.
Oh, yeah.
And then you could shield somewhere.
Then you can use Professor X as your stretch purchase and flip his stats somehow. And
Transfer Power is swapping attack stats. That's the Arch Nemesis. No, wait. You don't have a flip, I don't think, on a...
No, not on a basic.
You can only steal attack stat. Okay, sorry, I was thinking it as a flipper. Cool. Well, there's Ben's team. We'll put that up. We'll put the list on the in the show notes, and if you want to have a look, and if for some reason you want to play against it, then hey, give Ben a shout, because I'm sure he'd be glad to.
Yeah, I've got it built, so it's in my deck.
Torment you
to give you a game. And what would be in your common team? Then do let us know using the contact details at the end of the show. We just wanted to chat a little bit about our other kind of favourite common cards. Some of the ones that Ben maybe didn't decide to include in this team, and other ones that we've sort of loved from down the years. James, what are some of your fave commons, of which there are quite a lot? I was looking it up, and there's something like 700 odd.
There's a fair few.
I did get lumped with. I know it was kind of my idea to do the commons, but I'm very glad we decided to take the starters out as well. That would have been very, very long.
Yeah, there would have been way too many, but according to this, there's something like 700 and, well, not including basic actions, I think it's something like 729 or something, I think. Commons.
I went through all of them as well.
To choose from. Oh, heck. Well, James, what are some of your other faves?
That's dedication.
Well, I sort of started on the bolts that have been mentioned. So there was one of Zach's favourites, actually, not so much mine, but the Firestorm that you mentioned, I think, is Jason and Ronnie. That does 2 damage every time you field a bolt.
Yeah.
And obviously that Firefly that we've mentioned a couple of times. I thought that might be nice with Kryptonite for cheap bolts and blanking stuff. And Pepper Potts has practically 0 field. In fact, she has literally 0 fielding cost, so she's quite good for that. And a bit of Parallax maybe for refield and stuff. And then a couple of other bolts I fancied were, I think, did we mention Static? The common Static.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, no, that was a good shout, yeah.
While he's active, whenever your opponent rolls 2 or more dice at once, deal 1 damage to target character die. But another annoying one to put on Ben's team, in fact. And McRook, I think we've mentioned before, he's Punisher McRook, 4-cost bolt.
Yeah.
Fantastic stats.
From AVX.
141, 152, 263, and when he assigns to attack, knock out 1 target opposing character. Your opponent may prevent this effect by paying 2 life, and then they have to deal with it in their face, because you're going to...
I hated that card so much.
And another bolt was actually another friend's favourite, which was Edo. Hello, Edo. He used to like Cheetah Cursed Archaeologist, and this is a card I hated playing against.
The Arch Ping.
When Cheetah attacks, she deals 1 damage to the defending player. Doesn't seem like much, but she's got pretty healthy stats for a 3-cost bolt. She's a 2/2, 3/3, 3/4, and it adds up once you get a couple of them in the field.
Yeah, it's just stupid direct damage play, isn't it? Just like ping you for 1 damage. Just ping you for 1 damage. Ping you for 1. Ping you for... Just go throw up and just do 10 damage to your leg in one go.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Just a couple more. I know I've said a lot, but the common beholder, the lesser aberration, the free globals, and the massive stats, that was great. And,
it's already in my team, so I couldn't use it.
And one I mentioned before was Deathlock Death Machine. 6-cost shield with huge stats, terrible fielding costs, and overcrush. And when a Deathlock character die would be KO'd, you may instead pay 2 life to spin that die up 1 level, clear damage from that Deathlock die. I like that one, but it's expensive.
It certainly is. Yeah, those are some great ones there, James.
Just off the back of those, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
The static with the Hulk would be very good. Static with if your opponent rolls 2 or more die, you can ping something and then spin your Hulk up or deal your opponent 2 damage every time. So yeah, horrible.
Nice.
Yeah, because that even counts their normal
roll and re-rolls. Yeah,
roll and re-roll, eh?
Yeah.
So they're going to do that at least once every time.
I think about that with, I don't know if we're going to come to it, but Green Devil Mask.
Oh, well, can anybody count that as a favourite?
No, but just doing the static with Green Devil Mask would make them roll some stuff. So then you can pick something.
Oh, heck. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Peter, what were your thoughts on this? What were some of your fave commons from down the years?
Well, yeah, the Hulk we mentioned is a favorite of mine. Has won me a couple of drafts. I also always liked the Lockjaw from Deathpool. Deathpool. That was very complicated with how it functioned, but it
with a weird timing. Is that
yeah, because while Lockjaw is active before your opponent's clear and draw step, name a non-sidekick die. If your opponent draws that die, deal 2 damage to all of that opponent's character's dice, and each of your Lockjaw dice gets +2 attack.
So weird.
It's so weird how that works. But it's also very cool for clearing their field.
Yeah,
2 damage will take out a lot of things.
And the dice that are knocked out, they have to stay in prep till the following turn. Right?
That's
right,
exactly.
That is one of the most difficult things to try and teach someone new. Like, you're like, I know they're in your prep area and you roll everything in your prep area, but they have to be in your prep area before you start your turn.
But not now.
So the ones that get killed happens just before you roll, but that's not the start of your turn. That's slightly after the start of your turn.
Yeah. Yeah, they kind of invented a whole new timing window that nobody even knew was there.
That was one of the cards that made me sad that Deadpool rotated so quickly, because that was a very interesting card.
Yeah, it didn't last long, did it?
Also great in draft.
Yeah.
Oh, the famous damning.
And I also really like the common Batarang from Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually pretty cool with the Lantern Power Ring global, because it deals 3 damage to target villain.
Yeah.
And then it has Boomerang. So you roll it after you use it. If you roll action, you get to put it in your prep.
Yeah, that might be a nice one
cool with Boom Boom.
Yeah, that might be a nice one to add into my list as a 2-cost bolt, just as an alternate buy.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that's a nice thought. Cool. Well, there's some good comments there. There was a few that I needed to mention. I mean, obviously, Mr. Fix-It, the one who gets massive when he gets damaged. I mean, I've always
and Pimp Particles
dearly. And yeah, he obviously goes well with Pimp Particles, which is obviously another common, and that gives a fist character +1A, but also Overcrushed, which is brilliant when it comes to Mr. Fix-It, because you can get him totally massive, and then he's got Overcrushed, and he can do totally obscene amounts of damage. I mean, Ben mentioned the Mimic that enables you to do lots of ramp, which is really great. But a couple of other sort of lower ones that I wanted to mention, slightly more wacky. Maybe, I mean, not so much with Nick Fury, but Nick Fury I did want to mention from AVX, the one that makes all your... It's just a 2-cost shield that makes all your Avengers field for free, which I always used to really like. In the,
Very good. Disqualified to the patch. The rare's better, but...
for your team. Yeah, that's definitely true. But I think in terms of throwing together an Avengers team, he was great because you could get him out early.
Yeah, incredibly undervalued free fielding.
Yeah, definitely. Well, particularly when all those Iron Man and Captain America and Hulk had horrible fielding costs. It was really great having that reduction. And you know, I always like a bit of a theme team, and so that was always really cool.
What about the Nick Fury from Thor, though, the common one? Because that lets you field stuff for free if your opponent has a villain. And you have to
Yeah, that is...
I didn't even think about that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, with the villain
that would have made my list, I think. Actually, with the control pieces I had as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good call.
Yeah, while Nick Fury and opposing villain character die are active, you may field character dice for free. Yeah, so you could make a villain on your opponent's side using your global. And that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, if they don't have one.
Yeah, nice idea. The last one I wanted to mention, just as an old fave, just because it was crazy and just because we saw it quite a bit back in the day when we did quite a lot of Civil War drafts, was Speedball Robbie Baldwin, who is a 4-cost bolt, who says when Speedball is dealt combat damage, deal damage to each other character die equal to the amount of damage done to Speedball. I always love that because it's just absolutely balmy. Yeah. And you somehow manage to get him to block or be blocked by something huge, and then it just completely blows up the whole field. It's completely mad. It's indiscriminately killing everything.
Classic Mexican standoff.
A challenge to our readers, our listeners. Sorry, challenge to our listeners. It would be very good to see a team with Speedball and the Hulk. Commons only. But Speedball using that to trigger the Hulk, where if Hulk takes damage, you spin Hulk up or deal 2 damage to your opponent. Just get a way for them to damage your Speedball, so everything takes damage, and then you can do a bunch of damage. Using that as the main kind of triggering thing for Hulk. How would that work? That'd be very fun.
Yeah, you could ping him several times, can't you?
Doesn't it have to be combat damage? Is it?
Yeah. Does be combat damage.
Combat, yeah, but if you can get him to block... but it wouldn't create a loop, would it? Because the Hulk damage wouldn't... If you used the Hulk damage to damage Speedball, it wouldn't count as combat damage, would it?
No,
You're thinking of the other Hulk. I think Ben's thinking of the female Hulk from Thor, maybe. No?
That's the one I meant, sorry.
No, you couldn't use Hulk's damage to ping Speedball,
No,
I just meant that you could get, 10 of your characters damaged by Speedball blowing up the field, or not even 10. Yeah. If you get 3 of your characters damaged by Speedball, that's 6 damage, right? And then you have your opponent's field is empty, and then you can swing through with Hulk.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Horrid. Nice. Everybody loves a bit of Hulk. Maybe not so much that one, but he's good stuff. I mean, there's loads of others we didn't even mention. I like the old Guardians of the Galaxy Thanos that makes all the villains completely blank. I always thought he was...
Yeah, that's fun.
He was great. Ridiculously expensive at 7.
I think there was another category. So I had the bolts, I had the control pieces, and then the other category, which you kind of mentioned with Fix It, was just big stats. And I think there's a few common cards that were good in draft that have big stats.
Yeah.
So from Infinity Gauntlet, our favourite Kang, and Wong is also pretty good, the one that gets +2 attack with a Doctor Strange active. And there are quite a few common Doctor Strange, which is pretty good. One with the Force attack level, which is interesting. But also Justice is the big one from Civil War.
Yeah.
The one that got +2 attack if you had 2 sidekicks. Very doable, very annoying.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, I mean, and there's loads of other ones we didn't even mention there. I mean, we didn't mention Morphing Jar, Mivarium, Chalkboard, so many. Starhawk, so many good cards there are. I suppose WizKids love common cards. That's why they made so many of them. That's maybe the adage.
You want them to be good because that's kind of what attracted I know a few of us to the game. Just because it was so cheap to pick up compared to all the other things, and you only needed, common dice. And you can build really good common teams. They're very competitive.
Yeah. Good. In terms of a wall of shame, there are some pretty hideous commons out there as well. I mean, Vixen, a blank Vixen, probably, that's got a 4-cost, awful stats, no special ability, and just, quite possibly the worst card in the game.
And Kate Bishop too, right?
From Justice League, Bishop. Yeah, exactly, the one that kicks you in the face every time you field her, yeah. And arguably that Ghost Rider from AVX that has the famous
lie.
No special effects, just a low-cost die with good numbers. Oh no. No, have you seen the fielding costs? There are some pretty awful ones out there, but all right, well, should we round that up there, unless anybody else was bursting to say anything else?
No, just it was a very interesting team building challenge. I recommend everyone give it a go. And hopefully WizKids carries on making great common cards and not just great super rare cards. Yeah,
definitely. Oh, and of course, I mean, we mentioned it very little, kind of in passing at the beginning, but obviously there is the so-called pauper format where you build a team just using common cards, which actually is really cool. As long as you've got the right card pool. I know that we did it a couple of years ago, didn't we? We did a pauper tournament at Bratislava, and basically everybody just ended up bringing the Hulk that we've just been talking about, and it was just a race to see who could bring that out.
Just commons, or did that include starters as well?
That was the
modern. Yeah. It was modern pauper, yes. So that wasn't good because basically everyone had the same team at that point.
Everyone had Scarlet Witch, everyone had Boom Boom, and none of them worked because everyone had Scarlet Witch.
That was. And then I think, James, we and I played each other in the final, and you couldn't roll your Hulk, and I did, and that's basically the difference between the two teams, wasn't it? It was.
That was about the size of it.
It wasn't a particularly uplifting experience, but otherwise, I think pauper format can be good because obviously one of the things you're doing is you're throwing it open to a whole bunch of cards that everybody can get access to because everybody's got stashes of commons, and if they haven't, they just quite happy to give them to other players or whatever if they haven't got them because they're all kind of kicking around in the loft. So
plus, it's one of those words with a really massive pronunciation difference between sides of the Atlantic. I was wondering what the hell Americans were talking about when they were saying Popper. What the hell is Popper? What is Popper? Like Karl Popper? What are you on about? Oh, right. Pauper. Got you.
Yeah. Two nations divided by the same language, isn't it? I think. Anyway, give it a go. The pauper format, or however you want to pronounce it, is definitely worth it. And with that, I think we will move on to our next segment. Okay, well, as we record, it is September, which round our way basically means everybody's going back to school. And I know we've got a few teachers among us, so everybody's kind of in that back to school vibe. So we thought we'd have a bit of fun and just talk a little bit about some of the characters from Dice Masters that might make good teachers or otherwise particularly good kind of school characters. Guys, what thoughts have we got in terms of some really good back to school characters?
Typhoid Mary.
Typhoid Mary? What, because there's going to be a COVID spike? What?
You might as well get it from all angles.
Okay.
Moving on.
That's a pleasant one to start with. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
The Mind Flayer.
The Mind Flayer.
Yes.
How would that work in a classroom situation?
That's what teachers do.
I don't think you guys got the assignment here. We're meant to be choosing nice names for teachers.
We've just got Peter just takes it to that dark place straight away. Last time we had Iceman killing people on holiday.
That's what I do.
Ben, have you got any more constructive suggestions?
Well, should we go with the serious ones first, and then we can get to some of the more silly ones?
Go on.
So we'll do the obvious one first. Is Professor X? Probably any of them.
Yeah.
Recruiting young mutants, I suppose, sort of fits, but Trainer is the just talking about it. Best card ever made, but that's global anyway. But yeah, very good. Makes psychics get +1/+1, which all students want, and then abundance of knowledge in the form of energy in your prep area.
Totally, he's the full package, isn't he?
Yep.
You can't go wrong with Trainer. Yeah, he's very much the obvious. What else have we got on our? What else are we thinking in terms of other good back to school characters? Can I throw up Wong as a suggestion?
You can throw up whatever.
Throw up whatever you want with Typhoid Mary around.
I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna suggest Wong from Doctor Strange because he is an ally. Obviously he's friends with the students and all that, but also he counts as a sidekick in the field zone. And if we're thinking that sidekicks are maybe the students, he also, while he is active, he gives all other sidekick character dice +1A and +1B. So he's kind of giving them a knowledge boost. And let's not forget that in the films he's got his own library. He is, he looks after a whole load of all those books. So, he would be great to have in any school because if you need a copy of Harry Potter or whatever,
he's also amazing at karaoke. If you've seen Shang-Chi.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! But yes, he's not the best cameo, I don't think, in that film. But let's not mention who is. But for those who haven't seen it yet,
including me, stop it.
Yeah.
You should see it though. It's good.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's at the cinema, man.
Oh yeah, it means you're leaving your house. Heck.
So I thought another good one.
Yes, please, Ben.
Sorry. In the vein of the Wong kind of being an ally, I thought Blue Beetle High School Hero is kind of a cool subtitle. Just that kind of Dead Poet Society, the high school hero teacher. It's something we all aspire to be, I'm sure.
Yeah, and also his ability is that he may block up to 2 villains. So, if anybody tries to sneak into the school that doesn't belong there, he can obviously get his big beetle wings. And stop him from doing so. Yeah, Blue Beetle, high school hero. Good suggestion. What else have we got?
Bizarro, more than a monster.
James isn't taking this very seriously. Let's do another couple of... So Emma Frost had head of the class. Kitty Pryde, Madam Headmistress. There's a few X-Men-y, obviously because it's set around the high school of it.
Yeah.
There's also Hamato Yoshi, unknowing teacher.
Oh, yes. Good one. You'd
want your teacher to be knowing, though, wouldn't you?
Well, not all of them are, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's not.
Some of them play your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not. But, I mean, maybe that just means he's so natural at it that he doesn't need to actually kind of really try to be a teacher because that's just his thing. He can just do it without really.
The one I'm interested in on the list is the blob that captures sidekicks. Why would that be? Who put that down?
All right. Well, that was my suggestion. Because, Blob, he's a pretty big guy for a start. So if he walks into a classroom, then the kids are not going to mess with someone of that stature. But also, obviously, I was thinking about the blob that says... From X-Men First Class, when fielded, capture all opposing sidekick dice until Blob leaves the field zone. So he can obviously capture all of the students with his amazing teaching skills, I suppose, or something like that.
Capture their attention.
So more like
this association you have between students,
sidekicks and students. Yeah.
I don't really get it.
Well, they're like the the pawns in the game, aren't they, I suppose?
But you meant more that he'd capture their interest or the hearts and minds of the students, not
absolutely
physically
He's not going to abduct them.
kidnap them.
No, you mean sit on the misbehaving students. That's what he meant.
It's the most effective way of shutting them up.
No, Ofsted don't really like that very much, I understand. So the school's inspectorate aren't a big fan of actual kind of abduction or other sort of physical intimidation. So yes, of course, that wouldn't be the case. But I thought, he would be capturing their attention, so obviously he'd be good, I think.
One I thought was quite good, the kind of works with their subtitles, a bit grim, I suppose, but intellect devourer, which is what you want the teacher to be, someone who devours students' brain power by making them work so much, I suppose. And then he's also a deadly puppet master, is his subtitle. So good at controlling the class as well as having, soaking up all their intelligence so they can grow their minds, expand their minds.
And I suppose if you were a misbehaving student, then the promo Ant-Man, classic Avenger, while Ant-Man is active, when your opponent targets him with a character ability or global ability, you may spin him to level 1. If you do, ignore that ability and your opponent may not target Ant-Man with that ability again that turn. Obviously, if Ant-Man was to get into trouble, then he could use his ability to spin himself down and then kind of make the trouble go away. So he'd obviously be quiet.
What on earth? How is that better than More Than a Monster? Blimey, O'Reilly.
Anything else that anybody want to mention before we wrap this up?
No, I just wanted to end class with a chair smash, which I thought was a good one.
Chair smash. Yeah, again, not recommended. All right, well, there are a few thoughts on back-to-school characters. Were there any that we haven't thought of there? What ones would be good in a school? Do let us know by using the contact details at the end of the show. Otherwise, we'll move on to our final segment. Okay, well, just a few bits of AOB before we round up. James, what's going on the Thursday night dice fight front?
I've planned it out
done.
For the foreseeable, and the next one after this goes to air will be on the 23rd of September, and it's modern Tier 2 win cons.
What does that mean?
So, forget about your Thor. Who else is Tier 1?
Becky.
Green Lantern?
Becky, Green Lantern, is probably 1.5. So
Godcatcher.
There's a short ban list, which will probably be much like the orange ban list, but it'll be modern. Uh-huh. So it's sort of alternative modern win cons on the 23rd.
Yeah.
On the 30th, we have a format called Underdog, and I'm blowed if I can remember what that's supposed to be.
Is it to do with the keyword?
It might be. I don't know. I think that was suggested by somebody.
I think that's something to do with how many characters you had on your team, and your opponent would get an advantage if you had more characters or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I need to do my research on that one, but that's on the 30th. These were suggested on in the Dice Fight thread. It's not thread, is it? What is it
Discord
called?
channel.
Channel. Yeah, channel.
Yeah, there's a channel.
Anyway, so we'll come back to that one. Sorry, whoever's suggestion that was. On the 7th of October, we have Legacy, number 1 billion. And the whole of October, in fact, apart from the Legacy, is then taken up with sort of Halloween formats. A suggestion from Empire. So on the 14th, we have Zombieland. The initial letters should spell out that. On the 21st, we have D&D single affiliation monsters, and on the 28th, we have Necro War, which was Jason's sort of custom format. So loads of stuff, cool. And I'll get that up on the bloody webpage at some point.
Zombieland. What begins with Z apart from Zombie and Zatanna that you could put in your team? Is there anything?
Just use the team builder, I'm sure.
You can't not use Zombie, surely.
I'm sure,
he's busy.
Yeah, I guess that's the
Zombie T-Rex.
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
I'm sure there are many things that begin with Z. fun.
Okay, that's good.
And just before we move on, a quick shout out, please, to the aforementioned Empire, who is very kindly running, or well, by the time this comes out, will have already run tonight's tournament as we're recording this, because I'm here. Thank you, Rick. And also a shout out to Nefarious broadcaster Danny, who has been helping keep the legacy list updated with Truby, and obviously thank you, Truby. So thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, James, and thanks to everybody that you just mentioned. Peter, I think you've got some news on the prize-winning mat, I believe.
Yes. So a while ago, we had a
competition.
Contest. Yes. To win a custom-designed mat, and the winner was Mike Spin, and he had suggested a beta rail build image. So I started working on that. It took me a while because I had to acquire some new skills along the way. But it is finished, and it is, as we're recording, it is on its way to Mike. So hopefully he will have it in his possession by the time this airs, and then we will also release it to the public.
Brilliant.
And I think it turned out quite well.
Yes.
The draft images looked pretty cool.
It did. Yeah, I had a little sneak preview, and it looks excellent. You've done top work there, Peter. So well done. Mike is getting himself a very nice mat indeed. Thank you for doing that. Just one other last little bit. I am doing the London Marathon on the 3rd of October. This is to be the last episode before I have to put myself through it. Getting a bit nervous now, if I'm honest. Getting some black toenails from too much running. But which is not very nice. But if you were able to sponsor me, I'm running in aid of a local children's charity, small organisation that supports children with disabilities and other issues. If you were able to throw any sponsorship money their way, they would be very glad. We will put the link in the show notes if you were able to make a small contribution. Otherwise, that's the end of this particular episode. What did you think of Ben's common team? What common team would you build? Do let us know by getting in touch. You can send us an email, James. The email address is
hello@dmunited.eu.
Hello, thank you very much. Also, who would be your Dice Masters teacher? Is there some awful thing that we've missed there? And what other favourite common cards have you got that we might have missed? I'm sure there were loads that we didn't even mention, that you'll be probably screaming at your wireless as we've been talking about them. But but do let us know if there's something you need to get off your chest, and we might read it out in a future episode. Otherwise, it's been great to have you with us. If you are able to subscribe and rate and leave a lovely review using your favourite podcast app, we would be extremely grateful. But until next time, it's goodbye.
Birds are brilliant.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.